Next on Currents News, the World Meeting of Families. The Pope will arrive in a few hours, and we have exclusive coverage of the landmark event. Currents News is joining forces with Crux for the family meeting. Nuestra Voz editor Jorge Dominguez leads a panel along with Crux editor John Allen. And a large delegation of Catholics from the Brooklyn Diocese are in Ireland as well, the latest on them. Plus, a story developing at this hour. Senator John McCain has made a fateful decision. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The excitement is growing in Ireland. The Pope's arrival is just hours away, and Currents News is teaming up with Crux to deliver you the very best coverage of the World Meeting of Families. Tonight, we begin with Michelle Powers outside the main family arena.
While a lot of pilgrims are running inside, a lot of people are also spending time outside. They find that this road right here is a little Ireland in itself. There's a lot of faith, a lot of history, and a lot of music. Traditional tunes get tapped out and woven in to the fabric of life in Dublin.
Once in a lifetime opportunity.
Ian Donaghy and his friends are champions in County Tyrone. They've traveled all over this Emerald Isle, plucking strings and drumming beats, but they say nothing compares to performing at the World Meeting of Families.
Well, I thought it'd be a privilege because it's the World Meeting of Families and the Pope hasn't been here since the 1900s.
It's not only about the faith they know in their heart, but the music they feel deep in their bones.
Most of the children will be part of a family that has passed on the tradition very much through the oral tradition. So they learn their tunes very often by ear, not by notation.
Just as their earliest ancestors did, Mary Whalen, the band's organizer, says the melodies have played a central role in Irish culture and family since the very beginning of Celtic identity.
And we would have fast music, which you probably can hear the kids playing now, which are the dance tunes, and people danced to that. And then there are the slow tunes, and they tell very often very sad stories of immigration, of invasion, and of course a lot of them are about love and loss as well.
Since 2,000 years ago, when the Celts first arrived on the shores of Ireland, each traditional song has told a story. For centuries, music and storytelling were the only forms of entertainment on an island that had no electricity and where only a small minority of the population was literate. Ireland's history wasn't just written, it was played.
They would have very lengthy verses, so they tell a whole story. So it's not really apt to sing just a verse of it normally. You'd have to start in the beginning and go right through.
Some of the instruments strummed date back hundreds of years.
This is a boron. It's made from goat skin.
Wow. These young tellers of tales developed their craft on ancient instruments alongside their parents, learning the elders' keys and notes, but also creating their own.
There's always more to learn, like with music, and you're never finished learning.
And just like that, the beat drums on. The kids in this band have a bunch of friends that are actually performing for Pope Francis on Sunday, and they wish them a bit of Irish luck. In Dublin, Michelle Powers, Currents News.
The World Meeting of Families reaches a crescendo when Pope Francis arrives in Ireland tomorrow. And to provide the best and smartest coverage, Currents News and Crux are joining forces. It's a big team, and we'll be here to televise continuous live coverage of the Holy Father's mission. We're going to start Saturday morning at 5:30 on Net TV. It's going to last until the Pope's day is done. We'll be back live on Sunday morning starting at 4:15. I will be anchoring along with tablet editor Ed Wilkinson and Jorge Dominguez of Nuestra Voz. We are teaming up with Crux's John Allen, Christopher White, Inez San Martin, Claire Jean Gravé, and Elise Harris to bring you the very best in news, analysis, and expertise. The Currents News Crux partnership is already in full force in Ireland. Crux editor John Allen and Jorge Dominguez, the editor of Nuestra Voz, led an in-depth discussion on the challenges facing the Holy Father before his papal plane reaches Dublin. Jorge explains that Irish and Hispanic Catholics share a special connection in their faith.
There is a relationship because the Irish at the beginning, they basically built the church in the United States when they were a poor immigrant community recently arrived in the United States, and they were look about weird people, strange to the culture. The same is valid for the Latinos today. Sometimes they look like foreigners. Now they are becoming part of the country and part of the United States, as the Irish, did in the 19th century.
After the panel ended, John spoke about the biggest challenge Francis will be facing during his mission to Ireland. The church has been wounded for more than a decade by clerical sex abuse crisis.
In my experience, the difference here is not the nature of the challenges, but it's the intensity of the feeling about it. It's the anger, the rage that people feel when the church lets them down. Because unlike a lot of other places in the world, for a long time in Ireland, the church was the show. Every school, every hospital, every orphanage was run by the Catholic Church. Every institution that mattered in this culture was run by the Catholic Church. Every family was shaped by the Catholic Church. So when the church failed, that failure was felt by everyone, and it was felt everywhere.
After John and Jorge gave their talks, they opened the floor up for a Q&A with the audience, and they discussed accountability for the sex abuse crisis, women gaining higher ranks in the church, and the status of the church in Ireland. The World Meeting of Families covers a wide range of topics that impact family life. A big one is when a parent goes to jail. Dublin's Auxiliary Bishop Eamon Walsh was a prison chaplain for more than a decade. This morning, he led a discussion into the difficulties experienced by families with relatives in custody.
They suffer so much. If you can imagine, the breadwinner is gone. So you go from having a salary to having prisoner's allowance. You may have to wait 10 weeks to get it. You have children who are small, and what do you tell them?
Other prison chaplains in attendance also offered practical guidance, such as how to prepare kids to visit a relative in custody and how parishes could act as a support system for families with people in prison. The Brooklyn Diocese has a strong presence at the World Meeting of Families. Our very own Auxiliary Bishop James Massa is there. Today he discussed the importance of the Holy Father's landmark exhortation on family life, Amoris Laetitia.
One of the great themes of Amoris is a favorite of Pope Francis, that of accompaniment. And the invitation, the challenge is to accompany all families, those that are broken by divorce, those that have other kinds of conflicts, but also to strengthen families that are intact, to make them more Christ-centered.
He added that church leaders and lay people are called upon to accompany everyone. Speaking of the Brooklyn Catholics in Ireland, Currents News' Tim Harfman is accompanying a large delegation of pilgrims, and their spirits are high because the Holy Father will be there in a matter of hours.
Anticipation is building here in Dublin. Throughout my journey, I had the opportunity to speak to Catholics about Pope Francis attending the World Meeting of Families, and everyone I spoke with was positive as they wait for the Holy Father's arrival. Noel Moran is optimistic about the papal journey to Ireland as he plays his accordion.
I feel wonderful about it. I think it's a great thing. I think it'll be a great spiritual uplift for the Irish people.
The country hasn't seen a pontiff since St. Pope John Paul II in 1979. Almost 4 decades later, Pope Francis will spend the weekend in the Emerald Isle.
I think it's wonderful he's coming, and I will be attending his celebration mass in the Phoenix Park on Sunday.
That will be the Holy Father's closing mass. 500,000 worshippers will attend the liturgy, which is expected to be the largest public gathering in Europe this year.
We had to actually apply for tickets to go to the Mass in the Phoenix Park, so we're looking forward to it.
Pilgrims from the Brooklyn Diocese will be there too. Nearly 50 of them traveled over 3,000 miles to be at the World Meeting of Families.
I've been talking about this even at work for 4 months. So this is a very exciting thing for me.
That excitement continued to build this week as the Catholics from New York have been on pilgrimage, traveling to some of Ireland's scenic sites. They've also used the opportunity to grow in their faith.
This experience has been a very powerful experience of prayer and of witness, going to Mass, praying together, celebrating together.
Now they'll celebrate with the faithful at the world's largest gathering of Catholic families. The theme for the international event is the Gospel of the Family, Joy for the World, and it focuses on the common home.
We were brought up with great values, so it's important, those values have stood to us, so it's important that we pass them on to our children.
And it may look empty now, but soon this place will be packed with pilgrims. There will be heightened security throughout the weekend as a precaution, but Catholics tell me long lines and wait times won't diminish their excitement about seeing Pope Francis. In Ireland, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Also in the news, a dramatic and sad decision by Senator John McCain. He's stopping his brain cancer treatments. The Arizona Republican was diagnosed with an aggressive glioblastoma last year and had been receiving treatment since. But his family released a statement today about his prognosis, saying that the progress of the disease and the inexorable advance of age render their verdict. The senator's wife, Cindy McCain, has tweeted, quote, "I love my husband with all my heart. God bless everyone who has cared for my husband along this journey. Our prayers go out to the senator and his family." There's a lot more news headed your way. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio will be here next to go into the deep about the World Meeting of Families. American church leaders are making decisions about the clerical sex abuse crisis, and the tablet is publishing vital information right now. More now on the Pope's historic trip to Ireland for the World Meeting of Families. Anticipation for the Holy Father's arrival is high. So too are the issues that are at stake. The Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, goes into the deep tonight about the Pontiff's mission with tablet editor Ed Wilkinson.
Thanks, Liz. Well, the World Meeting of Families wraps up in Dublin this weekend, but before it does, we have Bishop DiMarzio with us today to talk a little bit about it. Now, Bishop, one of the things in the news recently has been the clergy sex abuse scandal, and is there any worry that that topic is going to hijack what's going on at the World Meeting of Families?
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, I saw this morning one of the interviews with Cardinal Schönborn, and he said, you know, this is probably the right time and the right place to have this meeting, because we're not hiding the scandal. That when people are scandalized, you can't say don't be scandalized. They are scandalized by the facts. But again, the only bulwark we have against abuse is the family. The family is where people are taught what's right and wrong. They're taught the moral law, especially in Catholic families. So the family is where we need to return if we want to change things.
Mm-hmm. What do you hope to come out of something like this? This is like maybe 4 or 5 days of meetings where people talk about different aspects of family life. But what would you like to see come out of it?
Well, I think with the people we've sent, the people all involved in family life work here in our own diocese, and they'll see how other countries, what they're doing. Some of the problems are similar. Some of the successes may be a bit different of what people are doing. One of the things that's come out of Ireland is this focus on grandparents, how important they are to the transmission of faith. Mm-hmm. So Ireland has become the place where an organization of Catholic grandparents has been born and is spreading to our own diocese. We have one of our deacons who is responsible for it here in the diocese, so that grandparents are to be highlighted as the transmitters of faith, because today they do a lot of that themselves, because parents for one reason or another don't have the time to do it. Mm-hmm. So I think Ireland does give us a great place, even with all the problems for World Day of Families.
Yeah, one of the things I was reading about was a panel discussion they had about the distractions that the family faces, especially youth, with all the social media, and they spend so much time on social media. How do you get the kids to get involved in that nuclear unit these days and get their attention?
Well, there was an interview on radio yesterday that said that the youth were interviewed, and they said the parents are also distracted. They're on it, and they can't talk to them. So, I mean, it's not just the youth, it's everybody who can, you know, look at your cell phone or whatever else you're doing, you know, be distracted by the media. So there needs to be family time. There has to be time when families eat together without cell phones, without the children entertaining themselves with video games on their little phones that everybody has. I mean, there has to be time to say, that's it. We are here together as a family. Outside influences, leave them out. So we've got to be kind of a little more disciplined than we have been.
Mm-hmm. Another contemporary issue is migration and the way families are being broken up these days. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion about that, about how do we keep families intact with all of these migratory patterns that are going on today.
It's always been a problem. I know my own grandfather came when he was 17 years old by himself. He left his family behind. That was his life. He didn't grow up basically with a family till he was 17. So this is nothing new. It's not a new phenomenon of migration, especially. Family separation has happened over and over again in every generation, with people leaving families behind to come to the United States, especially, which has been the land of promise. So we need to understand better what does happen, how people do have deficits when they don't have their family close to them.
It's probably an opportune moment because the meeting is taking place in Ireland, which is a country that has seen a lot of secularization recently. Used to be known as a Catholic country, not a Catholic country anymore, so to speak. What can the Holy Father, when he comes this weekend, what can he say to Ireland and to them about families and about the faith?
Well, I don't know what he's going to say, but
you never know what he's going to say.
No, you never know what he's going to say. But I think it's important that Ireland return to its Christian roots. You know, they were very good pagans. They had very good religion, pagan religion. They had druids, they had priests, the druid priest, and they had human sacrifice. It was a very interesting paganism they had. And unfortunately, they've returned to some of the pagan ways now. I think we need St. Patrick back again to expel the snakes from Ireland and some of the things that have crept in. They have had a beautiful culture. They need to return to it to salvage the culture for the future.
Okay, Bishop, thank you so much. Liz, back to you.
All right, thank you, Ed, and thank you, Bishop DiMarzio. Now, Ed, please stand by because in a few moments you're going to join me back here. We're going to talk more about our live coverage of the Pope in Ireland and a very special issue of the tablet that's out now. The Archbishop of St. Louis is inviting the Missouri Attorney General to inspect church files related to allegations of clergy sex abuse. Archbishop Robert Carlson said cooperation with law enforcement is appropriate. The Archdiocese of St. Louis has agreed to open its doors to the State Attorney General's office for an investigation of possible abuse by priests.
I think by inviting them in, I think you create a much more positive atmosphere. And so I hope that that the investigators who come here feel comfortable with what they can do, and at an arm's length, we look forward to their report.
Over decades, more than 100 Catholic priests in Missouri have been accused of abuse. A relative few were prosecuted and convicted. And in a similar move, the Chicago Archdiocese is vowing to cooperate with a new investigation being conducted in Illinois. That state's Attorney General is looking into all 6 Catholic dioceses on the heels of the Pennsylvania grand jury report. Chicago Cardinal Blas Supich has called those findings, quote, a catalog of horrors. Staunch American ally Australia has a new leader. Scott Morrison was sworn in this morning as Prime Minister after a leadership fight in Parliament. Morrison, a committed Christian, is known for his tough immigration policy. Malcolm Turnbull had been the Prime Minister and becomes the 4th to be booted from office in the last decade. Hurricane Lane is barreling through Hawaii. The high winds and surf continue to bring catastrophic flooding and landslides, forcing officials to close some roads. Local forecasters expect the center of the storm to move very close to the main islands through tonight. Still to come on Currents News, the World Meeting of Families. What could happen when the Pope gets there? And what's inside the current edition of the tablet? A special pullout with important information. We'll be right back. In just hours, the Pope will be in Ireland, and we will be live right here on Net TV. Currents News and Crux are teaming up to produce the very best coverage of the Holy Father's mission. We have a big team in place to deliver the finest news, insight, and analysis on what will be an historic journey. Ed is here again as we preview what's in store. Welcome back, Mr. Wilkinson.
Oh, it's good to be with you, Liz.
Always good to have you here. The Pope's main focus, as you know, will be on the family, but he's also going to meet with Irish survivors of clergy sex abuse. An outlook?
Yeah, well, what's happened, you know, in the last couple of days is that the sex abuse crisis has really crashed through all the headlines again. So the World Meeting of Families comes at a time when we're all talking about the sex abuse crisis. Everything the Pope says is going to be couched with a backdrop of the sex abuse crisis.
Well, you know this mission is historic, as you've mentioned, and we'll have continuous live coverage. We've been promoting that all week. We're going to start out tomorrow morning at 5:30. We're going to be live until the Pope's day is done. On Sunday, we're going to be back here at 4:15. In all that time,
Yes.
what will be the likely highlights?
Well, there's a couple of things to look for. Tomorrow night, late, the Pope will be there closing the World Meeting of Families. Big festive event, you remember from Philadelphia 3 years
Philly,
ago.
yes, we were also engaged.
Singing, dancing.
Yes.
So that's going to be a big night. Sunday morning, he visits the National Shrine of Our Lady of Knock. It's the big tourist spot, big pilgrimage spot in Ireland. And then finally, he's going to have a huge mass at Phoenix Park in Dublin, which is expected to have a crowd of about 500,000 people.
And we can't do this alone, so we're going to join forces with Crux. Our colleague, Crux editor John Allen, says we don't want to just report this story, we want to own it. And we are going to do that, right? We're going to be partnering with John, Christopher White, Inez San Martin, who will be on the Pope's plane, by the way, plus Claire Jean Gravé and Elise Harris. It'll be you, Jorge Dominguez from Nuestra Voz, Michelle Powers, Tim Harfman. It's going to be an all-star team. But we can't forget, this is also a big time for the tablet.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, we have a special issue out this week. It's our back-to-school issue. And parents look for this every year because we have our school calendar when they can look up, see what the holidays are, when all the significant dates of the school year are. And we've got stories about a lot of our Catholic schools. We've got a little checklist for parents on what to do for the first day of school.
Very nice.
So it's all there. It's a big issue. Make sure, you know, you go to church, and there are other ways to get it
sounds like
also.
a really big issue. We all know that the tablet is so important. It provides us news that we can't find anywhere else, but it needs our support. So how do we support this?
Well, we're asking people to subscribe to the tablet, you know, and you can do it two ways. You could subscribe right now, and you could save up to 55%. If you want to order online, you could just go to thetablet.org/home55, which is 55% is what you're going to be saving by subscribing
Nice
online.
little savings there.
Or you can call toll-free 1-877-883-8356. And we've really got a big push on now because we want individuals to subscribe to the paper. We want to take some of the financial burdens off the parishes. So we're asking individuals to subscribe to the paper.
And it's going to be a great time to start with this back-to-school issue.
It's a back-to-school issue. Plus, we've got a lot of things, you know, coming up, leading up to the World Meeting of Families and the papal trip. So a lot of analysis pieces of that and the sex abuse crisis. Anything you want to read, it's right there on the tablet this week.
Something for everybody. Thank you so much, Ed Wilkinson. We're going to see you back here in the morning at 5:30, bright and early. Also, follow us on social media, please, at the Currents News Facebook page and on Twitter at Currents NY. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. And do not forget our continuous live coverage of the Pope in Ireland for the World Meeting of Families starts tomorrow morning at 5:30, and I hope to see you then.